you ever felt like you see too much? Like you can read the room before anyone speaks, yet somehow you are always the one who ends up drained? You sense the storm before it breaks, the lie before it's told, and the darkness behind the smile. And still, you keep giving, hoping someone will finally understand what you feel. But they rarely do. This is the quiet pain of the empath, the soul that feels everything. And for years, you may have believed that your sensitivity was a curse, that being too kind, too aware, too open made you easy to control. But what if Carl Jung was right? What if your empathy is not weakness, but power? A hidden architecture of the psyche that, once awakened, makes you untouchable to manipulation itself. According to Jung's secret notes, there are 5 distinct empath types, 5 mirrors of a consciousness, and each one holds a unique defense against narcissistic control. Once you discover your type, everything changes. This is not pop psychology. This is the deeper language of the human soul, the map that turns pain into perception and empathy into strength. So tonight, open your mind, because what you are about to learn may completely rewrite the way you see yourself and the power you never knew you had. If this message already stirs something inside you, that quiet sense that you were meant to understand yourself, not hide from who you are, then stay close. Subscribe and walk this path with us. Each week, we explore the hidden corners of the human mind, guided by the timeless philosophy of Carl Jung, turning pain into wisdom and darkness into light. Because this channel is not just about learning, it is about remembering who you are. Have you ever been told that you feel too much, that you care too deeply, think too long, love too hard? And in the quiet hours of the night, when the noise fades and only the hum of your own thoughts remains, you wonder if maybe they are right. Maybe something inside you was built differently, softer, wider, more open to the world's ache. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, exhausted not from work or noise, but from feeling. You replay every word spoken to you that day, every expression that did not match the emotion behind it. You can still sense the sadness in your friend's smile, the irritation behind a stranger's polite tone. You can feel the heaviness in a room before anyone says a word. And yet, no one seems to notice that you are the one carrying it all. This is the hidden fatigue of the empath, the exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from feeling too much. It is the quiet weight of those who sense every vibration, every undercurrent, every invisible wound in others. You see through masks, but few ever see you. Tonight, as the city sleeps, the streets outside your window are washed in a dim, amber glow. The world seems peaceful, but inside, your thoughts flicker like the last light in a hallway that never quite turns off. You are tired, yet you cannot rest because your mind keeps whispering, something feels off. And perhaps it is not just the world. Perhaps it is the quiet ache of your own unspoken heart. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Maybe this is what he meant, that awareness itself carries a weight. To be awake to the emotions of others is to walk through life with 1,000 mirrors reflecting pain that is not yours. You sense it even when you do not want to. The co-worker hiding frustration behind a calm face. The friend laughing loudly to drown out loneliness. the stranger on the subway whose silence screams louder than words. You absorb all of it, the unsaid, the unseen, the unhealed. And at some point, the heart becomes full. You want to turn it off, just for a while, to not notice, to not care, to not feel so much. But your empathy does not come with a switch. It is a current that runs deep beneath your skin. You are wired to connect. And in a disconnected world, that makes you both a gift and a target. There is a strange kind of loneliness that only empaths understand. It is not the loneliness of being alone, but of being unseen, surrounded by people, yet misunderstood in your depth. You are told to toughen up, to stop overanalyzing, to not take things so personally. But how do you explain that your sensitivity is not a choice? It is a sense as real as sight or hearing, attuned to what most people cannot perceive. And yet, even this gift has its price. Jung believed that every human being carries a shadow, the hidden self, the part we repress. You, the empath, are like a mirror for that shadow. You reflect back what others cannot face in themselves. That is why some are drawn to you and others are unsettled by your presence. You show them what they hide, and they react as if burned by their own reflection. Knowing your own darkness, Jung said, is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. But what happens when your life becomes a gallery of other people's darkness? When your empathy, meant to connect, becomes a door that never closes. The night outside your window grows quieter still. The city exhales. You listen to the sound of distant traffic, the slow rhythm of your breath. It feels almost sacred. This stillness, this moment when you're finally allowed to feel without pretending. And in that stillness, you realize the truth. The reason you are tired is not because you are weak. It is because you have spent your life being the emotional anchor for others. You have carried their storms, their disappointments, their fears, quietly, invisibly, until your own heart began to ache from the weight. You have mistaken understanding for responsibility. You believed that seeing pain meant you were meant to fix it, but empathy was never meant to be martyrdom. It was meant to be awareness, a bridge, not a burden. So, take a slow breath, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Feel the air travel through you, cleansing, clearing, softening. Let the stories of the day fade, the voices grow faint, the tension loosen its grip. You are not the world's healer tonight. You are simply a soul learning to rest. Outside, the moon slips behind the clouds. Shadows stretch across your room like soft hands reaching for calm. You realize that maybe this is the moment you have been running from. The moment of stillness where you can finally meet yourself. You are not fragile because you feel deeply. You are not broken because you care too much. You are human, exquisitely so. And the tired heart beating inside you is not a curse. It is proof that you are alive to life itself. In Jung's words, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Perhaps that is why you have always sensed more than others, because you were meant to know yourself more deeply too. This fatigue, this tenderness, this ache in your chest, it is the doorway. It is not the end of your empathy. It is the beginning of your awareness. So tonight, as the world sleeps, let your body rest. Let your thoughts drift. You do not need to solve anything. You do not need to protect anyone. You do not even need to understand right now. You only need to be. Breathe, release, and listen to the silence inside you. It is not emptiness. It is space, the quiet room of the soul waiting for you to return. In that space, the noise dissolves and the truth becomes clear. You have never been too sensitive. You have simply been too awake in a world that fears feeling. Rest now, gentle heart. The storm is over. What remains is only you, calm, open, and quietly shining in the dark. You are still lying there, calm now, the edges of your thoughts beginning to blur. Something inside you feels lighter, but the questions remain. Why were you made this way? Why can you feel everything so clearly when others seem untouched? And then a thought arises, quiet but alive. What if your sensitivity was never a curse, but an unopened sense? You pause. The words land somewhere deep, where truth hides behind habit. For so long, you have carried your empathy like a wound. People told you to toughen up, to stop being too emotional, to build walls. But perhaps you were never meant to build walls at all. Perhaps you were meant to reflect. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." You have always been that reaction, the mirror that transforms without meaning to. You walk through life reflecting the invisible patterns of other people's minds, sensing their hopes, fears, and contradictions. But because no one explained this to you, you mistook this sacred sensitivity for weakness. This is the beginning of the mirror of the psyche. Jung described the psyche as a living image, a world made of reflection and projection. Everything we see in others, we are also seeing in ourselves. The empath, though, experiences this tenfold. You do not only perceive people's behavior, you feel their subconscious movements, their unspoken intentions. You are both witness and reflection. That is why some people are drawn to you instantly. They feel understood without having to explain. Others, however, pull away. They look into you and see too much. Not because you're judging them, but because your presence reveals what they have tried to hide. And maybe this is why your sensitivity feels so heavy. You have been reflecting pain that was never yours. You have absorbed projections, fragments of other people's shadows, mistaking them for parts of yourself. Jung called this the shadow, the unacknowledged side of human nature. Most people run from it. You, however, have been carrying it. It's time to set it down. Take another breath. Slow, gentle. As you inhale, imagine drawing light into your chest. As you exhale, imagine releasing what does not belong to you. The emotions, the expectations, the guilt that never had your name on it. You are not here to fix everyone. You are here to understand the language of the human soul. Imagine now that your sensitivity is not a flaw, but an instrument, a mirror made of light. Each person you meet touches its surface and leaves a small reflection. Some reflections are beautiful, shimmering with kindness. Others are distorted, clouded with pain. The mirror itself is neutral. It does not judge. It simply reflects what is. That is your gift. That is your nature. But here lies the danger. When the mirror forgets it is a mirror, it begins to absorb the image it reflects. That is what exhaustion feels like. It is not just emotional fatigue. It is the moment you stop recognizing what is yours and what is not. This is why Jung's work matters. He believed that consciousness, true awareness, is what clears the mirror. When you become conscious of what you are reflecting, you stop absorbing it. The mirror becomes clear again. And in that clarity, manipulation and confusion lose their power. Perhaps then, empathy was never about carrying the world's emotions. Perhaps it was about understanding them without losing yourself in the process. You have always been capable of this. You simply did not know there were others like you. Others who sense life through 5 distinct lenses, 5 different ways of seeing and feeling. Jung called them psychological architectures, but you might recognize them as the 5 mirrors of empathy. Each mirror has its own light. Each one protects the soul in a different way. The reflective empath mirrors others so perfectly that lies cannot survive in their presence. The intuitive empath senses patterns before they unfold. The boundary empath maintains perfect clarity between their emotions and those of others. The transmutative empath transforms negativity into wisdom and light. And the sovereign empath, the rarest of all, stands untouched, whole within themselves, needing no approval to know their worth. As you listen, you may feel one of these mirrors stir within you. Maybe you have always been the one who feels everything but speaks little, or the one who just knows when something is wrong even before there are signs. Or perhaps you have always carried the pain of others and turned it into calm without realizing how you did it. Wherever you find yourself, know this: there is nothing broken about you. You are simply awakening to your nature. You are learning to see what has always been there, the reflection behind the reflection. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." That is your path now. From dreaming to awakening, from absorbing to reflecting, from confusion to clarity. You might still feel a hint of unease, that mix of curiosity and fear that always comes before transformation. Let it be there. Every great understanding begins with uncertainty. That is the threshold of growth. So as you rest here, let the thoughts settle. Maybe this sensitivity you have spent your life defending is not something to protect, but something to explore. Maybe the part of you that feels everything is also the part that can finally see yourself clearly. Your heart is not too open. It is simply learning how to hold light without burning. And when you learn to hold that light, when your awareness becomes your shield, no manipulation can touch you, because nothing false can survive inside truth. So breathe again. Feel the calm spread through your body. The air is cool, soft, alive. You are safe here. You are learning. You are beginning to remember. Tonight we will walk together through 5 mirrors of the soul. 5 ways the human heart perceives, protects, and transforms the unseen world. Each one will bring you closer to understanding the secret architecture of empathy, the one Jung glimpsed in his most private writings, the system that explains why you see the world as you do. And when you finish this journey, you will no longer see your empathy as a burden. You will recognize it for what it truly is, a design of consciousness itself, a map to your own wholeness. Now, close your eyes. Let curiosity take the place of doubt. The next reflection awaits. You have heard the word empath before, perhaps too many times. It has been turned into something mystical, something fragile, something almost unreal. But as you begin to explore these 5 mirrors of the soul, you realize it is not about magic. It is about perception, about seeing what others cannot and feeling what they refuse to feel. You close your eyes, and the world behind your eyelids still flickers. Faces, words, memories. Some are soft, some sting. You remember moments when people made you question yourself, when you spoke the truth as you felt it, and they looked back at you as if you were imagining things. That slow erosion of trust, that is gaslighting. It doesn't begin with cruelty. It begins with confusion. At first, it feels small, a comment dismissed, a feeling denied, a truth rewritten in a softer tone that makes you doubt your own memory. You start to ask yourself, maybe I was wrong, maybe I overreacted. And each time you do, the mirror inside you fogs a little more. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is the moment when that truth comes alive. Gaslighting pulls you into someone else's unconscious. Their projections, their fears, their shadow, and makes you live there as if it were your own reflection. Imagine standing before a mirror that has been fogged by breath. You can still see yourself, but the image is blurred, distorted. You wipe it with your hand, but it fogs again, again, again. Not because the mirror is broken, but because the air around it is heavy with someone else's exhale. That is what it feels like to be gaslighted as an empath. You are so tuned to emotional climates that another person's denial can rewrite your sense of truth. It starts with love or trust. You believe what they say because you care, but soon your inner compass spins. You begin to question your perception, your emotions, even your intuition. The more you doubt yourself, the easier it becomes for others to shape your reality. And slowly, you forget that the mirror was ever clear. But here is what Jung's philosophy teaches. The mirror is never truly lost. It only reflects what stands before it. When the image is distorted, it is because you are seeing not just the surface, but the shadow. Jung defined the shadow as the hidden side of the psyche, the parts of ourselves we refuse to see. Everyone has one, but empaths encounter it differently. Because you are a mirror by nature, you do not just see your own shadow. You often see the shadows of others. Their anger, jealousy, insecurity, and fear, all the things they cannot face, are quietly projected onto you. You start carrying feelings that are not yours. Someone accuses you of being too sensitive, when what they truly fear is their own sensitivity. Someone calls you selfish, when they are avoiding their own need for validation. Each accusation leaves a fingerprint on your mirror. Over time, it becomes harder to tell which fingerprints are yours and which belong to someone else. In those moments, you begin to live in reflection instead of reality. You bend your truth to preserve peace. You silence your intuition to keep others comfortable. You shrink yourself to fit into spaces that cannot hold your depth. And yet, even as you dim, your awareness never dies. Deep down, something whispers, "This is not who I am." Take a slow breath. Let it move through you like light cutting through mist. Feel it clear the mirror a little. You have always seen more than others because your mirror was made to reflect the hidden layers of human emotion. But to see clearly, you must first remember this. The shadow you perceive is not yours to carry. Jung wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." That is your key. The moment you face your own shadow, you become immune to the projections of others. You recognize the difference between their reflection and your reality. Think of it this way. The mirror does not absorb the image. It simply reveals it. Your task is not to fight what you see, but to understand it. To look with compassion instead of judgment. To know that when someone tries to distort your light, it is because they are blinded by their own. That is what being a reflective empath truly means. You are not just sensitive to emotion, you are sensitive to truth. You see beyond appearances. But truth can be unsettling to those who hide behind illusion. That is why they try to make you doubt your own clarity. If they can convince you that your mirror is broken, they can avoid seeing what it reflects. But your mirror was never broken. It was only covered in the fog of other people's fear. As you sit with this, let the metaphor unfold inside you. The mirror is both your gift and your challenge. It reveals, but it also demands responsibility. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you understand, you cannot pretend to be blind again. This realization may sting, but it is the beginning of power. When you stop apologizing for your perception, when you stop absorbing blame for truths that make others uncomfortable, your mirror begins to clear. You start to see yourself again, sharp, honest, luminous. Let that image settle. You, the reflective empath, are not fragile glass. You are awareness itself, still, unshakable, and bright enough to expose the faults without ever needing to destroy it. This is how you reclaim yourself, not through resistance, but through clarity, not by fighting the darkness, but by understanding where the light ends and the shadow begins. So breathe again. Imagine the fog lifting. Imagine your reflection returning, steady and strong. The doubts lose their shape. The noise quiets. You begin to remember what was always true. Your sensitivity was never the problem. It was your power misunderstood. The mirror is clear now. You can see both yourself and the world around you, no longer blurred, no longer distorted. And as you rest in this awareness, a soft invitation arises from somewhere within. Tonight, we will step closer to this mirror, not to analyze, not to fix, but to understand how it reflects the hidden side of the human soul. Because when you finally learn to see clearly without absorbing what you see, you do not just survive manipulation, you transcend it. You become untouchable, not through walls, but through wisdom. And that is where your next awakening begins. There is a quiet moment that comes after clarity, a pause where everything you once doubted starts to make sense. You begin to realize that your pain was never random. It was the friction of truth trying to polish you into awareness. In the last reflection, you stood before a fogged mirror, blurred by confusion, by gaslighting, by the projections of others. But something has shifted. You have learned to see what is yours and what is not. The fog is lifting. And now, as your awareness sharpens, the mirror begins to awaken. Jung once said, "One doesn't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That is precisely what happens when a reflective empath awakens. Not by rejecting the shadow, but by seeing it with perfect clarity. You begin to understand that your sensitivity is not fragility. It is perception. It is the rare ability to see what others hide, even from themselves. At first, this awakening feels like grief. You notice how often you have dimmed your light to protect those who could not face their own reflection. You recall moments when someone's anger rose, Not because you were wrong, but because you were right. Because you had seen through the mask they built to protect their illusion. When you speak your truth from this clarity, something subtle happens. Their false self, the carefully constructed persona that hides insecurity and shame, begins to tremble. Jung called this the collapse of the persona. Modern psychologists refer to it as narcissistic injury. It is the moment the mirror becomes so clear that the shadow can no longer hide. It is not an act of aggression. You are not attacking them. You are simply being real. But truth has a frequency that illusions cannot survive in. Like dust in sunlight, falsehood disperses in your presence. Imagine the mirror now, the same one that once fogged with every exhale of doubt. It shines brighter than ever before, so luminous that even darkness cannot cling to it. The distortions fall away. The reflection becomes honest, unfiltered, raw. You might think this would make life easier, but awareness is not always gentle. The world, in its denial, resists the mirror that refuses to lie. You may find that some people drift away, unable to face what they see in you. Others may lash out, accusing you of arrogance, coldness, or cruelty, all because your clarity exposes their disguise. Do not shrink again. You are not the cause of their discomfort. You are simply the surface upon which truth reveals itself. This is the stage Jung described when he wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. To live authentically, even when it unsettles others, is not selfishness. It is integrity." As your mirror awakens, you begin to notice something extraordinary. The people who once tried to manipulate you no longer can. Their usual tactics, guilt, confusion, control, fail to stick. It is as if their hands pass through light. You are no longer absorbing their emotions, no longer accepting their stories as your own. The projections fall flat, powerless. And in this freedom, you begin to feel light, not light as brightness, but as weightlessness. You stop carrying the heaviness of other people's pain. You stop mistaking their storms for your own. You no longer spend your nights dissecting what you did wrong in conversations that were never truly about you. You stop performing empathy as obligation and start embodying empathy as awareness. It is the difference between drowning in the ocean and becoming the tide itself, flowing, aware, uncontained. Take a breath. Let it move slowly through you. Inhale clarity. Exhale release. Feel the calm that follows truth. Now, when someone stands before you, their emotions still ripple through the air, but they do not enter you. They meet the mirror, and in that reflection, something begins to change. You can almost sense it, a subtle tremor, a flicker in their eyes. The beginning of what Jung might have called the narcissistic injury cascade. This is not destruction. It is awakening through discomfort. When a false self meets an unclouded reflection, the denial begins to crack. The person is forced to confront the very parts of themselves they have avoided for years. Your clarity, your presence, becomes a catalyst. The mirror no longer absorbs, it reveals. And in that revelation, truth does what truth always does. It liberates. You do not need to push, to convince, or to fight. The awakened mirror works silently. Simply by existing in integrity, you dissolve illusion. Simply by being yourself, you invite transformation, though it may first appear as conflict or withdrawal. Jung believed that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. You are the living example of this principle. The people who resist you most are those standing closest to their own reflection. And while they may not thank you, their encounter with you plants a seed, one that will someday bloom into self-awareness. You, too, transform in this process. Where once you felt drained, now you feel clear. Where once you carried guilt, now you hold compassion. Where once you felt unseen, now you see yourself. It is a strange peace, not loud or triumphant, but soft, steady, certain. The kind that settles into the bones and whispers, you no longer have to prove what you already are. So when the world feels heavy again, when others project their fears or frustrations onto you, remember this truth. You are the mirror, not the image. Their reflection is not your identity. Let your awareness stay bright, but gentle. Let your empathy remain open, but not absorbing. Be the clear glass that allows light to pass through without distortion. Because when you stop absorbing, the world sees itself through you. And in that reflection, in your quiet, radiant truth, healing begins. You are no longer the empath who bends to survive. You are the one who sees, the one who reflects, the one who awakens. Now, rest in this knowing. You are free. There is a certain peace that comes after awakening, the kind that follows truth once it has burned through illusion. You, the reflective empath, have learned to see without absorbing, to mirror without losing yourself. But now, something deeper begins to stir. A quiet frequency beneath awareness itself. It is not a thought. It is not even a feeling in the way we usually define it. It is something older, softer, almost ancient. A knowing that does not use words. And yet, for most of your life, you have silenced it. You have been taught to trust reason, to follow logic, to analyze, to measure. The modern world rewards those who think quickly, who act rationally, who silence the tremor in their chest when something simply feels off. You were told to be reasonable, to stop overreacting, to use your head. So you did. You learned to bury your instincts beneath the polished surface of logic, to doubt the inner voice that speaks in sensations, not sentences. But still, it whispers. Carl Jung wrote, "There's a voice within you that no one, not even yourself, has ever heard. Give it space." That voice is the whisper beneath thought, the undercurrent of intuition that the intuitive empath lives by. If the reflective empath is a mirror of others, then the intuitive empath is a mirror of patterns, of invisible movements that happen beneath conversation, beneath reason, beneath time. You have felt it before. That small twinge in your stomach when someone is lying but smiling. That sudden pull in your chest when you are about to make a decision that is not aligned with your truth. You might call it a gut feeling. Jung called it the intuitive function, the mind's ability to perceive reality as energy rather than form. But over the years, your intuition has been drowned out by the noise of overthinking. Every time you felt something without evidence, your rational mind stepped in like a strict teacher. You're being irrational. And you listened. Because in this world, intellect is celebrated. Intuition is not. The problem is not that logic is wrong. Logic is essential, but logic is like the stone, and intuition is the river that flows beneath it. No matter how strong the stone appears, the water always finds a way through. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Notice your body, not as an object, but as a living landscape. Somewhere inside you, beneath the surface of thought, something moves. A pulse, a vibration, a quiet stream of knowing that does not ask for permission to exist. That is the whisper beneath thought. It does not shout. It does not argue. It only is. You have ignored it because it does not use the language your mind understands. It speaks in rhythm, in warmth, in coldness, in tension, in release. It speaks through your body, the compass that modern life has taught you to distrust. Jung once wrote, "The body is the outer manifestation of the soul." To ignore your body, then, is to ignore half your consciousness. But to listen, truly listen, is to awaken a sense that has been asleep for too long. Close your eyes for a moment. Notice the sensations beneath your skin, the way your breath moves through your ribs, the subtle energy in your hands, in your stomach, in your spine. That is intuition breathing. It is not superstition or fantasy. It is perception, raw and direct. You do not need to prove it. You only need to allow it. Imagine your mind as a lake. Thoughts are the ripples that move across the surface, fast, visible, fleeting. But intuition is the current beneath, quiet but powerful, always flowing toward truth. When the water stills, the current becomes clear. This is why silence matters, why stillness heals, why so many answers appear when you stop trying to think them into existence. You begin to remember moments when intuition tried to speak. The friend you knew you shouldn't trust, the job that didn't feel right, the decision that looked perfect on paper but felt wrong in your chest. You knew. You always knew. You just didn't believe that knowing could be enough. This is the tragedy of the intuitive empath. To have the world's subtlest radar and to doubt the signal every time it hums. But awareness changes everything. Now that you understand your sensitivity as a form of perception, not weakness, you begin to listen differently. You no longer demand proof. You simply observe. A warmth in your gut, a heaviness in your throat, a sudden peace in your heart when something aligns. Your body becomes a living map of truth. Jung described intuition as perception via the unconscious. That is, a bridge between what your rational mind cannot yet see and what your soul already knows. This is not about abandoning logic. It is about restoring balance, letting logic interpret what intuition discovers. Your thoughts are the translator, not the master. Your gut is the guide. In the quiet, you begin to practice. A decision appears in your mind. Small, ordinary. You notice how your body reacts. Does it tighten or expand? Does it feel warm or cold? Does your breath shorten or deepen? These are not random sensations. They are the language of the whisper beneath thought. Trust it. Let it lead. The more you honor this subtle communication, the clearer it becomes. The intuition you once silenced now speaks with precision. It begins to warn you before danger arrives, to calm you before anxiety grows, to reveal truth before deception takes root. It feels like magic, but it is not. It is alignment. As you breathe, the body and the mind begin to work together again, no longer enemies, but partners. The head sees, the heart feels, the gut knows. And slowly, the world feels less chaotic, because instead of reacting to noise, you are responding to rhythm. Instead of forcing answers, you are allowing clarity. Jung believed that intuition is perception that comes from the whole. It is the wisdom of the entire psyche, conscious and unconscious, mind and body, working together. It is the soul reminding you that truth is not something you find. It is something you recognize. The whisper beneath thought has been there all along, waiting for the mind to quiet enough to hear it. So, listen, not to words, not to logic, but to the hum beneath them. That is your compass. Quiet, ancient, trustworthy. Let it speak to you now, as softly as breath. You have always known the way. You begin to notice that the whisper beneath thought, that quiet current you once ignored, is growing clearer. It no longer hides beneath the noise of logic. It rises gently through the body, guiding you with sensations more honest than words. It feels like warmth when something is right, tension when something is wrong, expansion when truth is near, contraction when it is not. You are starting to listen not with the mind, but with the whole being. This is what Carl Jung called perception via the unconscious. Modern psychology might call it body-centered perception. The understanding that intuition does not live in thought but in the body itself. Your body has always known. Long before your mind could analyze the situation, your nervous system was already reading the room, sensing danger or harmony, attraction or deceit. The problem was never that your intuition failed. It was that you stopped trusting the language it spoke. Now, with awareness, you return to it. Breathe slowly. Feel your body resting against the bed or the chair. Notice how the air moves through you, cool as it enters, warm as it leaves. Every breath you take is a dialogue between your inner world and the outer one. The more you listen, the more fluent you become in the body's quiet language. The intuitive empath lives by this fluency. You no longer seek proof from others because your body offers the first signal, the earliest warning, the softest truth. It does not lie. It tightens when deception approaches. It relaxes when authenticity enters. It buzzes when your spirit recognizes something real. Jung wrote, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." This awakening does not happen in the mind. It begins in the chest, in the stomach, in the breath. It is the moment you remember that your body is not separate from your soul. It is the compass you carry through the chaos of human emotion. When you start trusting this compass, something changes in the way you move through the world. You stop chasing explanations and start sensing alignment. You no longer wait for things to fall apart to confirm your instincts. You feel the discord before it becomes visible. This is the gift of the intuitive empath, to sense the storm before it forms, to read the air pressure of emotion, to hear the unsaid truth between words. And yet, this power does not make you rigid or suspicious. It makes you gentle, fluid, wise. Because when you are anchored in intuition, you no longer need to control outcomes. You trust the signals within. You trust your rhythm. Imagine yourself as a vessel sailing through a sea of human emotion. Around you, the waves rise and fall. Conversations, energies, expectations, projections. But within you, there is a radar, subtle but constant, sweeping in circles, scanning for truth. You are the radar of truth, sailing through human storms. This radar does not predict the future. It perceives patterns before they collide. It feels tension before conflict, imbalance before chaos, misalignment before regret. The more you trust it, the smoother the journey becomes. At first, this trust feels fragile. You might doubt it again. What if I'm just imagining this? But every time you honor a gut feeling and watch it confirmed by reality, confidence grows. Your inner compass strengthens and life begins to flow differently, slower but clearer. You stop rushing to fix everything. You start observing. You start listening with your entire being. This is the deep shift from anxiety to awareness. Anxiety reacts. Intuition receives. One tightens, the other expands. One fears uncertainty, the other moves with it. And through this practice, you rediscover something profound: safety. Not the safety that comes from control, but the safety that comes from connection. When you trust your body's wisdom, you are never truly lost. Even in moments of confusion, there is a subtle hum beneath everything, a rhythm that reminds you where home is. Your body does not speak in sentences, it speaks in sensations, and each one is an invitation to presence. A flutter in the chest, pause, a heaviness in the gut, reconsider, a sense of peace in the ribs, proceed. This is how intuition moves, not as command, but as collaboration. The body doesn't demand, it suggests. And as you learn to listen, your decisions begin to unfold with effortlessness, not struggle. Jung believed that intuition was a bridge to the collective unconscious, a way of accessing patterns and truths larger than ourselves. When you tune into your own body, you are tuning into this collective rhythm, the invisible web that connects every heart to every other. This realization is both humbling and empowering. You are not alone in what you sense. You are part of a larger field of perception. Your intuition is not private magic. It is participation in the shared intelligence of life itself. And when you move from this awareness, you stop fearing human storms. You navigate them, you flow with them. The empath who once drowned in emotion now becomes the sailor who reads the currents. You steer not by sight, but by feel. You trust the wind, you trust the water, you trust yourself. Take another breath. Let it fill your lungs slowly. Let the exhale melt away tension. This is what it means to live intuitively, to let awareness breathe through you. Your logic still has its place, but it no longer rules you. It serves you. It gives shape to what intuition reveals. The two are not enemies. They are partners. The mind draws the map. The body holds the compass. And when they work together, something beautiful happens. You move through life with ease. You sense what is right long before you can explain why. You recognize harmony, not as concept, but as feeling. Carl Jung once said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Your body knows that order. It feels it beneath the noise. And when you align with it, the world no longer feels unpredictable. It feels alive, connected, intelligent, trustworthy. So as you rest tonight, let this truth settle deep into you. Your intuition was never a whisper to be doubted. It was the first language you ever spoke. The body's quiet conversation with the soul. You are not fragile for feeling. You are finely tuned. You are awareness embodied. And as you drift deeper into calm, remember, you are the radar of truth, sailing through human storms, moving with grace, guided by the compass that has always lived within you. When you begin to live through the compass of your body, life changes. The noise of the world softens. The edges of chaos blur. You begin to feel your way through existence with awareness, with gentleness, with trust. But as your sensitivity deepens, so does your exposure. What once felt like quiet knowing can sometimes swell into something overwhelming. like waves crashing faster than you can breathe. This is the paradox of the empath's awakening. The more open you become to truth, the more open you also become to everything else. You start to feel the emotions of others, not just beside you, but inside you. The co-worker's anxiety, the friend's sadness, the stranger's tension. They drift toward you like invisible weather. And before you realize it, your own emotional landscape begins to flood. Carl Jung wrote, "The greater the contrast, the greater the potential. Great energy only comes from a corresponding great tension of opposites." For empaths, that tension lives in this flood. The pull between connection and dissolution, between caring and collapsing, between being open and being whole. At first, you do not notice it happening. You simply feel tired, heavy in the chest, foggy in thought, restless without reason. You take on moods that aren't yours, burdens you never agreed to carry. You smile, but something inside you quietly sinks, as if the sea within has risen a little too high. Imagine a dam holding back rain for too long. Drop by drop it collects. Unspoken sorrow, unacknowledged anger, quiet fear. Then one day, the wall gives way. The water rushes through, unstoppable, claiming everything in its path. That is what it feels like to lose your boundaries as an empath. The world pours into you. Its joy, its pain, its noise, all of it merges into your bloodstream until you can no longer tell where you end and they begin. And yet, it is not cruelty that causes this flood. It is love. You love so deeply that you forget to contain yourself. You feel so completely that you forget the necessity of edges. The flood begins quietly, perhaps after a long day of holding space for others. A friend confides their heartbreak. A stranger vents their frustration. A family member transfers their fear. You absorb it all because empathy feels like kindness. But by nightfall, the heaviness lingers. Their emotions have found a home in you. You tell yourself it is fine, that being open-hearted is a virtue, that you are strong enough to hold it all. But inside, the water keeps rising. Jung once observed, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Your empathy is the tree, its roots plunging deep into the emotional soil of others, drinking not just their light, but also their shadow. Without awareness, you begin to grow from their pain instead of your own truth. This is why you often feel drained after being with certain people. Why social spaces exhaust you. Why even silence can feel crowded. You are absorbing what was never meant to be yours. The flood is not failure. It is feedback. It tells you that your gift has been left unguarded, that your heart has forgotten the gentle discipline of containment. In this moment, breathe slowly. Let the breath be your shoreline. Each inhale draws back what is yours. Each exhale releases what is not. You are not the ocean of every emotion. You are the tide that knows how to return. The body begins to remind you where safety lives, not in shutting down, but in recognizing origin. This sorrow, does it belong to you? This anxiety, did it begin in your heart or someone else's? This guilt, is it truly yours or something reflected into you by another's fear? As you ask these questions, the flood slows. Awareness acts like gravity, pulling the waters back into place. Empathy without boundaries is surrender without purpose. Empathy with consciousness is compassion with clarity. The boundary empath learns this through exhaustion, through nights spent wondering why love hurts so much. But pain, in Jung's view, is not punishment. It is instruction. It teaches where the edges must be drawn, where the self must reclaim space. The imagery of water deepens here. Water is both danger and medicine. It cleanses even as it consumes. The empath's journey is not to build walls against it, but to learn how to breathe within it, to float, not drown. Jung wrote, "Emotion is the chief source of all becoming. There is no change from darkness to light or from inertia to movement without emotion. So do not despise your sensitivity. It is the very energy that allows transformation. But learn to guide it, the way a river carves valleys without ever losing itself. You may recall moments when you entered a room and felt the energy shift, the air heavy, the mood thick. That is the flood announcing itself. Or when someone's anger lingered in your chest long after the conversation ended. That too is water spilling over your banks. When you feel emotions that seem foreign yet familiar, that is your signal. The dam is thin. The tide is rising. The flood then is both your warning and your initiation. It tells you that your empathy is powerful enough to feel the collective. But it also asks, can you hold yourself while holding the world? That is the test. You begin to understand that the boundary is not separation. It is structure. Without it, empathy becomes chaos. Love without form, compassion without stability. With it, empathy becomes art. Love that moves, heals, and returns, but never loses itself. As you reflect on this, something inside softens. The storm subsides. The floodwaters begin to settle into still lakes, reflective and clear. You feel the heaviness lift from your chest, the way earth feels lighter after rain. And in that clarity, you sense a quiet truth. You are never meant to absorb everything. You are meant to perceive it, to understand it, and then let it pass through. Your empathy is not a sponge. It is a mirror made of water. It reflects, it flows, it cleanses, and it moves on. When the flood recedes, you stand at the shore of yourself again. Calm, grounded, whole. The air smells like renewal. The heart feels like home. The lesson of the flood is not to stop feeling, but to start discerning, to know that love without edges becomes self-erasure, and that the greatest kindness you can offer the world is the version of you that remains intact. You are not drowning. You are learning how to swim. Soon, in the next tide, you will discover the wall of light that protects without isolating, the boundary that breathes. But for now, let the water settle. Let the calm return. And remember Jung's quiet wisdom. The soul becomes only when it is connected to the world. Connection is not drowning. It is knowing when to float, when to reach, and when to rest. The flood has passed. What remains is you, cleansed, awake, and ready to rebuild. When the flood subsides, what remains is stillness, the quiet after the storm, the clarity that follows surrender. You stand on new ground now, damp but steady. The emotional tides slowly retreating. The chaos has taught you something essential. Empathy without boundaries is not compassion. It is erosion. You begin to sense that there must be another way. A gentler, wiser form of openness. Not the openness that lets everything rush in, but the kind that allows life to flow through you without washing you away. Carl Jung once wrote, The greater the tension, the greater the potential. Great energy only comes from a corresponding great tension of opposites. The empath's life is built upon this tension. To feel deeply without losing oneself. To remain open without becoming overwhelmed. And this is where the lesson of energetic differentiation begins. It is not about closing the heart. It is about clarifying it. It is not about separation. It is about distinction. Energetic differentiation means learning to recognize the subtle difference between what arises within you and what flows through you. It is the skill of sensing without absorbing, observing without identifying, feeling without fusing. Imagine your inner world as a garden. It has always been lush, full of emotion, intuition, and life. But over time, others have wandered through, leaving footprints, planting their seeds, sometimes even uprooting your own flowers. You let them because you loved them, because you believed love meant access. But love without boundaries turns a sanctuary into soil for confusion. Now, picture this garden again, but this time surrounded by a wall of light. Not a wall made of stone or fear, but of clarity. It does not block anything. It simply defines where you end and the world begins. When emotions approach, this wall of light helps you sense their origin. If they are yours, they resonate gently, grounding you deeper into the earth. If they belong to someone else, they pass through, visible, acknowledged, but not absorbed. This is energetic differentiation. Jung called this process the development of psychological autonomy. The ability to remain connected to others without being controlled by their projections. He wrote, "Individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self. That is what this practice leads you toward, a kind of wholeness that does not depend on disconnection, but on conscious clarity. Begin by noticing sensations in your body when emotion arises. Does the feeling feel organic, a natural pulse of your inner weather? Or does it feel foreign, sudden, imposed? Often, the difference is subtle but real. Your own emotions move in rhythm. Others' emotions crash in waves. Yours seek understanding. Theirs demand reaction. The key is awareness. When you name the feeling, this is mine or this is not mine, something miraculous happens. The body relaxes. The mind clears. The storm passes. Awareness itself becomes the boundary. There is no need to fight, no need to resist. You do not have to build walls of steel to stay safe. You only need to remember what belongs to you. Jung believed that what we resist persists. When you try to push emotions away, they only grip tighter. But when you simply see them, truly see them, without judgment or ownership, they dissolve back into the space they came from. That is the function of the wall of light, not to divide, but to illuminate. It clarifies the origin of emotion, transforming confusion into understanding. Imagine yourself walking through this inner garden now. The air is fresh. The colors are vivid. You can still hear the sounds of the world beyond. Laughter, pain, noise. But they no longer echo inside you. They move like wind along the wall of light, noticed, but not invasive. This is not isolation. It is integrity. It is what Jung called psychic hygiene. The ability to maintain inner order amid external chaos, to tend to your own garden so that you can offer genuine peace to others, not exhaustion disguised as empathy. When you master this subtle awareness, you become both softer and stronger. Softer because your heart no longer needs to armor itself. Stronger because clarity replaces confusion. People will still come to you with their pain, their stories, their storms. But now, instead of drowning in them, you listen from the shore. You hear the emotion, but you do not become it. You witness the shadow, but you do not carry it. Your love becomes lighter, cleaner, more enduring. You no longer mistake empathy for sacrifice. You no longer confuse connection with collapse. You understand that compassion is not the act of taking someone's burden. It is the art of helping them see it clearly while staying rooted in your own center. This awareness brings a deep sense of calm, a stability that does not depend on external peace. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to trust your body's signals. And most importantly, you begin to trust that love can coexist with boundaries. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But when you do, when you fully accept your limits, your edges, your individuality, the fear fades. Because you realize that those limits are not walls, they are forms. They give shape to the boundless empathy within you. The wall of light glows softly around your garden now. You can feel it, gentle but unmistakable. It breathes with you, expands and contracts as you do. It is not separation, it is presence. And for the first time in a long while, you feel at home inside yourself. You watch emotions move through you like wind across petals, touching but never uprooting. You feel connected to the world, but no longer consumed by it. The flood is gone, but the water remains, calm, reflective, alive. Here, you discover a truth that every empath must one day learn. You can love the world without drowning in it. That is not detachment. It is devotion shaped by wisdom. The kind of love that sustains instead of eroding. And as you rest in this garden within these walls of light, you understand what Jung meant when he wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration." Integration, that is the essence of this moment. The self no longer splits between empathy and exhaustion. It becomes one, balanced, luminous, whole. So breathe gently. You have returned to your garden, and this time it will remain yours. After finding stillness within the garden of light, something deeper begins to surface. A quiet realization that clarity does not erase sensitivity. Even as your boundaries strengthen, the world still reaches you. The pain of others still arrives, subtle yet undeniable, asking to be held, not ignored. Empathy, after all, does not end at the wall of light. It continues inward, through the corridors of the soul, into a place where human suffering is felt not as concept, but as energy, raw, heavy, unfiltered. Carl Jung once wrote, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." For the empath, those roots reach into the deepest shadows of humanity. The grief that is not theirs, the sorrow that passes from one heart to another. You feel it even when words are absent. It moves through you like smoke, unseen but real. The experience is not noble, it is exhausting. There are days when the weight of other people's emotions feels almost physical, pressing on the chest, fogging the mind, sinking into the muscles. It begins subtly, through conversation, through proximity, through care. Someone confides in you. Someone breaks down. Someone collapses into silence. And in that silence, your body opens as if to catch what they can no longer carry. At first, it feels like compassion, but slowly it becomes fatigue, the kind that no sleep can heal. You notice the symptoms: headaches after emotional conversations, stomach tension after conflict, a strange emptiness after giving too much of yourself. This is the empath's hidden mechanism: absorption. You absorb the unprocessed emotions of others: grief, shame, anger, confusion, as if you were a filter for the collective unconscious. Jung would call this participation mystique, the psychological entanglement where the boundaries between self and other blur. It is not something you do consciously. It happens because your system is open, attuned to subtle signals. You pick up what others repress. You metabolize what they avoid. Their pain becomes your pulse. Over time, this constant absorption begins to take a toll. The body starts to mirror the emotions it holds: anxiety that is not yours, sadness that arrives without cause, weariness that feels ancient. You begin to sense a kind of inner depletion, as though your energy has been quietly siphoned into 1,000 unseen directions. This is not weakness, it is empathy untempered by awareness. Imagine yourself as a furnace, a sacred vessel of transformation. Each time someone comes to you with pain, that pain enters your fire. You burn it, process it, and return warmth. But even the strongest furnace requires fuel, air, rest. Without them, the fire dims, and eventually you become the ashes of your own giving. Jung warned of this in his reflections on individuation. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The empath's life is a constant reaction. Every encounter changes you. Without self-awareness, the transformation becomes one-sided. Others release, you retain. The result is emotional burnout, an invisible illness of the soul. You begin to withdraw, not out of selfishness, but out of survival. Even joy feels muted because your energy is spent on managing what is not yours. And yet, beneath this exhaustion lies something sacred, a hidden alchemy waiting to be recognized. It begins the moment you stop resisting your sensitivity, the moment you stop labeling it as too much, the moment you understand that what you carry is not just weight, but material for transformation. Pain, when understood, becomes fuel. Emotion, when allowed to move, becomes light. In alchemy, Jung found a metaphor for this inner process: the transformation of base matter into gold. He saw it not as chemistry, but as the symbolic work of the soul. The gold, he wrote, is the spirit, the incorruptible essence which is hidden in matter. The empath's exhaustion, then, is the raw material, the lead. Through awareness, it becomes gold. Think of every sorrow you've ever absorbed as a piece of lead resting within you, dense, dark, unmoving. When you bring awareness to it, when you say, "This is not mine, but it passed through me for a reason," something shifts. The heat of consciousness begins to rise. The lead softens. The heaviness transforms into understanding, the darkness into light. This is the alchemy of empathy. The exhaustion you feel is not the end. It is the midpoint of transformation. The fire is not destroying you. It is refining you. But the process requires one essential step: the recognition that absorption is not your duty. Healing does not mean carrying. Transformation does not mean taking on. It means allowing energy to pass through your awareness and return to its source, cleansed by consciousness, not stored by the body. Breathe into this realization. Inhale, awareness. Exhale, release. Notice how the air moves through you like flame, not burning, but purifying. Each breath clears a little more of the residue left by others' emotions. The more you practice this awareness, the lighter you become. The furnace no longer consumes you. It illuminates you. The process is not dramatic. It is subtle, quiet, almost invisible. You might feel a small release, a sigh that comes from nowhere, a sense of peace that returns without explanation. That is alchemy at work. Jung called this conscious metabolization, the psyche's ability to process what was once unconscious and transform it into meaning. What others repress, you transmute. What they reject, you integrate. You become, in essence, a silent healer of energies, not by fixing others, but by being so present with their pain that it can no longer remain shadow. Still, you must remember this truth. Your role is not to absorb indefinitely, but to understand what passes through. Awareness, not endurance, is what transforms. The image of the furnace evolves here, no longer a place of depletion, but of light. The ashes that once represented exhaustion begin to shimmer. The soot turns to spark. You realize that every emotion you have ever carried, yours or another's, has taught you how to see, how to feel, how to remain human in a world afraid of feeling. That is your hidden gift. The weight of other hearts once made you weary, but it also made you wise. It taught you that compassion without consciousness leads to collapse. But compassion with awareness becomes creation. And so, the empath who once felt buried beneath the ashes begins to rise from them, not hardened, but illuminated. The body softens, the breath deepens, and somewhere within, you hear the faint hum of transformation. This is not escape. This is evolution. Jung said, there's no coming to consciousness without pain. But he also showed that pain, once faced, becomes the path to wholeness. And as you rest now, surrounded by the faint glow of your own alchemy, one truth shines through the smoke. The fire that once burned you is the same fire that now lights your way. The weight of other hearts has become the warmth of your own. From the ashes of exhaustion comes a strange and quiet clarity. The fire that once consumed begins to glow from within. Softer now, steady, purposeful. The weight of other hearts has not disappeared, but something in the way it moves through you has changed. It no longer feels like invasion. It feels like transformation. What you once absorbed unconsciously, you now begin to metabolize consciously. Carl Jung described this process as the foundation of psychic integration, the act of bringing the unconscious into awareness so that what once controlled us becomes a source of power. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is the essence of conscious metabolization. It is not about resisting pain, nor about drowning in it. It is the sacred middle ground, the quiet art of digesting darkness into light. Imagine again the furnace from before, but see it now, not as a place of fatigue, but of alchemy. Every sorrow that enters you is like a rough piece of metal, dense, heavy, dull. Awareness is the fire that transforms it. With every breath, with every moment of presence, the base metal begins to shift, to soften, to shimmer. In this way, every pain becomes potential. Every burden becomes a bridge. The process begins in stillness. You sit with what aches, not running from it, not dramatizing it, simply breathing. The breath becomes your flame, constant and alive. Each inhale draws in the raw material, grief, disappointment, fear. Each exhale refines it, releasing what is no longer necessary, turning density into clarity. It is the ancient work of alchemy made human, the transmutation of emotion. In medieval alchemy, philosophers spoke of nigredo, the black stage, a period of dissolution where old forms die before transformation begins. The empath knows this intimately. Every emotional collapse, every period of burnout, every heartbreak, these are your nigredo. The darkness is not failure, it is the first stage of creation. Through consciousness, through the gentle attention that refuses to turn away, the darkness heats, shifts, transforms. The alchemists called this albedo, the whitening, the purification by light. And at last, rubedo, the reddening, the stage where spirit and matter unite, where pain becomes purpose, where empathy becomes wisdom. This is the cycle you have been living all along, though no one taught you to name it. The empath's life is not just feeling, it is transmutation. You begin to see this in the smallest of moments. A conversation that once left you drained now leaves you calm. A memory that used to sting now brings compassion. The emotions still arise, but they pass through you differently, lighter, cleaner, less personal. Awareness has changed the chemistry. In Jungian language, this is integration. What was once repressed becomes understood. What was unconscious becomes illuminated. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Conscious metabolization is the moment you stop calling it fate. The process is simple, but not easy. It requires trust. Trust in your ability to hold what is uncomfortable without becoming it. It requires patience, the willingness to sit in uncertainty long enough for the transformation to unfold. And above all, it requires breath, the one alchemical tool you have always had. Try this. Inhale deeply, as if drawing the dense, heavy metal of sadness into the center of your being. Do not resist it. Let it enter the furnace of your awareness. Then exhale, slowly, letting the breath carry with it a thread of light. The understanding that what you feel is not meant to stay stagnant. It is meant to move, to change, to rise. Each cycle of breath is a refinement. Each conscious exhale is gold being formed in the invisible air. Pain that was once poison becomes medicine. Emotion that once drowned you becomes energy that sustains you. And gradually, the body begins to remember what wholeness feels like. Not absence of feeling, but the harmonious flow of emotion without resistance. In this state, even sorrow carries beauty. It no longer drags you down, it draws you inward. You start to see sadness as sacred heat, an invitation to burn away illusion. Fear becomes fuel for courage. Anger becomes a signal of truth. Every emotion becomes a teacher. The alchemists believed that the entire universe was engaged in this same process, the slow refinement of matter into spirit. Jung saw in this an image of the psyche itself, saying, "In each of us, there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves." Through conscious metabolization, you begin to meet that other, the deeper self, who can transform pain into purpose, emotion into awareness. This meeting is not violent. It is tender. It happens quietly, like dawn unfolding. You begin to see that every emotional wave carries a hidden light, waiting to be released through attention. The moment you stop running from your emotions, they start working for you instead of against you. It is in this moment that empathy transcends suffering. You no longer just feel what others feel. You transform it. Their pain passes through you, and your consciousness refines it, like breath, turning smoke into air. This is what Jung called individuation, becoming whole, not by avoiding darkness, but by integrating it. The empath's heart becomes a crucible for that integration, strong enough to contain both sorrow and serenity, both shadow and light. And from this balance arises peace, not the fragile peace of avoidance, but the grounded peace of transformation. Imagine now that your breath itself carries the color of gold. Each inhale gathers what is heavy. Each exhale releases it as light. The process is invisible, but the result is real, a quiet inner radiance that no external chaos can dim. This is the alchemy of feeling, a sacred practice that turns empathy into wisdom and exhaustion into grace. Pain no longer defines you, it refines you. You no longer fear the dark because you understand its purpose. Jung wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." You begin to see that order now, not outside of you, but within you. The furnace glows softly. The ashes that once symbolized burnout now shimmer with gold. The transformation is complete, not because the pain is gone, but because it has changed form. It has become light. And as you rest in this luminous calm, one final truth rises from the center of your being. Not loud, but absolute. You do not fight darkness. You digest it into light. After the alchemy of feeling, the air within the soul grows lighter. The fire that once burned with pain now glows with quiet awareness. The empath has learned how to transmute darkness into light, how to let energy pass through without being consumed by it. But even as the heart steadies, another pattern begins to emerge. Subtle, ancient, and deeply human. It is the need to belong, the quiet longing to be seen, to be accepted, to be loved without condition. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And perhaps that is why so few ever do. For most of us, the path toward authenticity is tangled with the fear of rejection. To be fully oneself risks being misunderstood, abandoned, or unloved. So instead, we learn to adapt. We learn to shapeshift. It begins innocently. As children, we notice which parts of us are rewarded and which are not. We learn that certain emotions, anger, sadness, vulnerability, make others uncomfortable. And so we hide them. We polish our edges. We wear the masks that keep us safe. By adulthood, we have become experts at this art. At work, we wear confidence. In friendships, warmth. In love, whatever the other person needs us to be. We move between mirrors, changing our reflection to match what we believe others want to see. It feels like connection, but beneath the surface, it is survival. Jung described this adaptation as the formation of the persona, the social mask we create to meet the world. It is not false, it is necessary. The persona helps us function, communicate, belong. But when we mistake it for our true self, it becomes a prison made of approval. Imagine a mirror that has shattered into 1,000 pieces. Each fragment catches a different light, reflecting a different version of who you are: the responsible one, the gentle one, the strong one, the kind one. Each reflection is real, but none are whole. Over time, the weight of maintaining all these reflections becomes heavy. You start to lose track of which face is yours. You begin to sense an emptiness behind every mask, a silence that grows louder the more you perform. This is the struggle of the shapeshifter empath, the one who feels so deeply connected to others that they begin to forget themselves. The need for approval becomes oxygen. The idea of disapproval feels like suffocation. So you keep adjusting your tone, your truth, your desires, until you no longer know what you genuinely feel. You become fluent in reading others, but illiterate in reading yourself. The exhaustion that follows is not physical, it is existential. It is the quiet despair of living as a reflection rather than a source. And yet, beneath this despair lies a profound longing, not to please, but to be. The soul begins to whisper, what would it feel like to exist without permission? Jung often spoke of this tension between the persona and the self. The persona is the necessary social face, but the self, the true self, is the totality of the psyche, the place where shadow and light coexist. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The shapeshifter's journey is the return to that privilege, the slow and sacred act of collecting the broken mirrors and seeing for the first time one's undivided reflection. It does not happen quickly. The persona has been built layer by layer, year by year. The process of peeling it back can feel like shedding skin. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it feels like loss. At first, you may find yourself asking, if I stop performing, will I still be loved? This question is the threshold of the sovereign empath's awakening, the final evolution of empathy, where love no longer depends on approval and worth no longer bends to validation. But before sovereignty comes surrender, the surrender of every false self created to earn belonging. Imagine again the mirror, fractured, scattered across the floor. You kneel before it, the fragments catching light from every direction. For the first time, you see how beautiful the pieces are, even in their separation. You realize that each mask, each version of you was not a lie. It was a survival instinct. Every persona was an attempt to stay connected in a world that punished authenticity. You can forgive them now. With each breath, the fragments begin to move. They do not disappear. They integrate. Slowly, they align into a single radiant surface, a mirror that reflects not what others need to see, but what is. This is the beginning of wholeness, not perfection, but honesty. As this awareness deepens, the body begins to loosen its grip on tension. The constant need to anticipate, to please, to protect, it fades. In its place grows a quiet strength, a kind of stillness that says, I exist, and that is enough. The empath who once shapeshifted to survive now begins to rest in their own skin. They realize that true empathy does not require self-erasure. It requires self-presence. You cannot truly understand another's heart while abandoning your own. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, required us to integrate all the parts we had rejected. The persona must be recognized, not destroyed. The mask, he said, is only dangerous when we forget that it is a mask. Latin. So the shapeshifter learns to wear the mask consciously, as a tool, not an identity, to engage with the world without dissolving into it, to express emotion without losing autonomy. This awareness transforms everything. Relationships become lighter, freer, more authentic. Conversations deepen. Boundaries become effortless. Love becomes less about being needed and more about being known. The old reflex to seek validation softens. Approval loses its grip. There is no longer a desperate hunger to be liked, only a quiet commitment to be real. And in this new stillness, life begins to reflect back differently. People respond not to the persona, but to the presence behind it. Those who once took your openness for weakness now feel your strength, not as defense, but as truth. The fractured mirror has become whole again, not because it returned to its old form, but because it embraced every break as part of its design. Every crack now glimmers with light. Every reflection aligns with authenticity. In this moment of awareness, the shapeshifter becomes the sovereign in the making. The transition is gentle, almost imperceptible. There is no grand declaration, no dramatic unveiling, only a soft realization, like dawn creeping across a quiet sky. You no longer need to perform. You no longer need to win love. You are love, unmasked. And as you breathe into this knowing, you feel what Jung meant when he said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. Every mask, every reflection, every fragment, they were never mistakes. They were the path. The empath who once mirrored the world now begins to reflect their own truth. The shapeshifter's lesson is simple yet profound. The self you have been seeking was never hidden behind the masks. It was the light that shone through the cracks all along. As the masks dissolve and the fragments of the mirror align into wholeness, a quiet stillness begins to settle inside. Not the stillness of emptiness, but the stillness of sovereignty. The shapeshifter's long performance draws to an end, and something new, something ancient, begins to rise in its place. The sense of one's own center. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet becoming who you are is not about finding an identity. It is about returning to an inner axis, the place where your truth resides, untouched by noise or approval. This is the practice of self-referencing, the ability to turn inward and ask the most powerful question in human psychology. Is this true for me? It sounds simple, but for the empath, for the one who has spent a lifetime feeling through others, adapting, absorbing, reflecting, it is revolutionary. Self-referencing is not selfishness. It is not withdrawal. It is the reclaiming of the internal compass that was once outsourced to everyone else's emotions. It is the act of sitting upon the inner throne and allowing your own awareness to govern your responses. Imagine a kingdom within, vast and quiet. Its walls are not made of stone, but of presence. Its banners are woven from truth. And at the center of this kingdom sits a throne, not of gold, but of stillness. Upon it, the true self rests, unshaken by external storms. This is not an egoic throne. It does not rise to dominate. It exists to anchor. Each time you pause before reacting, each time you breathe before answering, each time you ask, "Is this mine?" or "Is this true for me?" you return to the throne. You reclaim your authority over your inner world. The manipulators of the world, the narcissists, the controllers, the emotional siphons, lose their leverage the moment you sit here, because their power depends on your disconnection from yourself. Their manipulation works only when your sense of truth depends on their approval. But from the throne within, you see clearly. Their words may still reach your ears, but not your roots. Their moods no longer dictate your own. Their chaos may swirl outside the walls of your kingdom, but inside, there is only clarity. Jung described this as the emergence of the self, the archetype of totality, the organizing center of the psyche. He wrote, "The self is not only the center, but also the whole circumference which embraces both conscious and unconscious." In this state, the empath no longer oscillates between extremes, between merging and withdrawing, between overgiving and isolation. The energy stabilizes, awareness expands. Self-referencing is the bridge to that awareness. To live from the throne within means no longer measuring your worth by how others respond to you. The inner question changes from, "Do they like me?" to, "Does this align with who I am?" This single shift transforms your entire emotional architecture. Suddenly, boundaries are not rules, they are natural consequences of truth. Love is no longer barter, it becomes flow. The empath who once mirrored everyone else now becomes a mirror of integrity. In moments of challenge, the throne calls you back to neutrality. The world may demand urgency, noise, reaction. But within your inner kingdom, you choose pace, breath, and discernment. You understand that not every storm deserves your participation. Not every voice deserves entry into your awareness. This is not detachment. It is discernment born from peace. Jung believed that peace was not the absence of conflict, but the integration of opposites, the conscious acceptance of both light and shadow. He wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder, a secret order. That secret order lives here, on the throne within. Here, every emotion that enters your realm is greeted, but none are enthroned. Anger bows before awareness. Fear kneels before compassion. Sorrow is allowed to speak, but not to rule. The throne remains steady, the ruler awake. The more you inhabit this awareness, the more your energy changes. People feel it. Manipulators sense it first. They no longer find an opening. Their projections slide off your walls of clarity. Their tactics, guilt, confusion, emotional baiting, lose effect, not because you fight them, but because you no longer feed them. This is the power of sovereignty, quiet, grounded, unprovoked. The empath who once absorbed everything now radiates from within. Energy flows outward rather than inward. Compassion remains, but without depletion. You give because you choose to, not because you must. This is what it means to rule the self. Not domination, but harmony. Not authority over others, but alignment within. Imagine sitting upon that throne now. Feel your breath steady, your spine straighten, your awareness widen. The air inside the kingdom feels calm, alive, but still. Thoughts slow down. The mind no longer scrambles to predict or please. Here, love feels different. It is no longer something to chase or earn. It is a quiet field that expands from the center of your being. Unconditional, unhurried, unstoppable. From this stillness, relationships transform. Love no longer depends on a validation of others. Approval loses its meaning. You stop performing for affection and start sharing from authenticity. And something extraordinary happens. The more you stop seeking love, the more love finds you. People are drawn not to your effort, but to your peace. Not to your perfection, but to your presence. They sense safety in your steadiness because it mirrors the part of them that longs to be whole too. This is the paradox Jung so often spoke of, that by turning inward, we connect more deeply outward. By anchoring in the self, we create space for genuine relationship, free from manipulation and projection. The empath becomes sovereign not by building walls, but by cultivating gravity, the inner pull of truth that keeps everything in orbit. In this sovereignty, compassion becomes effortless. Boundaries no longer feel like defenses. They feel like the natural architecture of a sacred space. As awareness deepens, peace turns to gratitude. The journey that once felt like survival becomes a form of service. Simply by existing in your wholeness, you remind others of their own. And in this final quiet understanding, the once fractured empath, the mirror, the shapeshifter, the healer, the furnace, all dissolve into one truth, the self that is both soft and strong, open and contained, human and divine. From the throne within, everything finds its balance. The heart opens without fear. The mind observes without judgment. The soul rests without resistance. Carl Jung's words echo here like a benediction. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Awakening is not a moment. It's a way of being. The art of sitting in your own presence with reverence. And as the last flickers of self-doubt fade, one truth settles gently over the inner kingdom. Simple, luminous, final. When you no longer seek approval, love returns freely. Peace does not arrive suddenly. It unfolds like dawn. After the long journey through mirrors and masks, through floods and fires, something inside begins to breathe again. Slow, spacious, unhurried. The empath has walked through every chamber of the self. Reflection, intuition, boundaries, alchemy, and sovereignty. 5 dimensions of the same soul. 5 mirrors that, when aligned, reveal the wholeness that was never truly lost. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The empath, having traveled through to shadow and light, finally understands the meaning of those words. Becoming oneself is not an achievement. It is a remembering. All the noise that once pulled from every direction, other people's emotions, projections, expectations, begins to fade. What remains is a vast, quiet awareness, a landscape beyond conflict or confusion. This is what Jung called the field of consciousness, where the opposites unite and the psyche finds its natural rhythm again. Imagine standing in a forest at dusk. The air is still, yet alive. The trees are motionless, but the silence hums with life. Above, the moon rises slow and full, pouring its silver calm across every leaf, every root, every forgotten thought. Even the wind has stopped moving, as if the entire world is holding its breath. This is the field of silence. It's not emptiness. It is fullness without demand. It is not withdrawal from the world, but the end of the world's hold over your peace. In this silence, everything coexists. Joy and sorrow, love and loss, self and other. There is no longer the need to fix or define, no impulse to control or absorb. The empath's gift, once a source of pain, becomes a quiet form of perception. You sense life as it is, unfiltered, unburdened. The world has not changed, but your relationship with it has. In earlier stages, empathy was reaction, a constant attunement to the storms of others. Now, empathy has evolved into resonance. You no longer lose yourself in what you feel. You allow feeling to pass through, like wind through branches. This shift is subtle but immense. Jung described it as moving from projection to presence. The outer world no longer reflects your inner chaos. Instead, your inner stillness begins to shape the world you perceive. And something remarkable happens here. The narcissist avoidance effect. In this new frequency of calm, those who once thrived on your confusion, those who fed on your emotional availability, begin to drift away. Not because you have built walls, but because your energy no longer offers chaos for them to feed on. Darkness cannot anchor itself to stillness. The manipulative cannot hold power over peace. It is almost poetic, the way shadow retreats in the presence of steady light. Jung said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." This is the truth, now embodied. Because you have faced your own shadow, you no longer react to others. You recognize projection for what it is. Pain seeking to stay unconscious. And rather than absorbing it, you let it dissolve in your awareness. In this field of silence, even conflict loses its edge. Words that once triggered defense now land softly and fade. People who once unsettled you now pass through your life like wind across the grass, noticed but not retained. The stillness does not make you distant. It makes you vast. It is the stillness of deep rivers, not empty caves. Beneath it flows everything that has ever lived in you, all your feelings, all your histories, all your loves, now woven together into one coherent whole. Jung often spoke of the self as both the center and the totality of the psyche. He described it as a guiding principle of unity. Here, that principle becomes felt reality. There is no longer the fragmented empath, the wounded empath, the reflective empath, only consciousness itself, breathing in and out through the form of your life. The field of silence is where individuation becomes embodiment. The understanding that the journey was never about escaping sensitivity. It was about learning to rest within it. Listen closely to this quiet now. Beneath it, there is a pulse, a rhythm that feels both personal and universal. It is the rhythm of being, the rhythm of what Jung called the unus mundus, the one world where psyche and matter, inner and outer, are no longer separate. This is why the world no longer pulls you, because you are no longer split from it. You no longer try to fix it from the outside or heal it by suffering within. You simply are, and in your being, the world finds its mirror. Imagine again that forest. The moonlight has deepened. The trees gleam softly under its glow. The air is cool and transparent. There is nothing to prove, nothing to chase, nothing to solve. Every breath you take seems to merge with the wind, every heartbeat with the earth's slow rhythm. You realize that peace is not something to reach. It is something that begins to emerge the moment resistance ends. And in this awareness, something sacred unfolds. Compassion without effort. Love without possession. Clarity without fear. This is the empath's awakening. Not dramatic, not loud, but profoundly gentle. It is the soft revolution of consciousness that begins when one soul stops identifying with the storm and recognizes itself as the sky. Jung wrote, "As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. The empath has done exactly that, kindled light, not by fighting, but by understanding, not by absorbing, but by integrating. And now, the light no longer flickers. It radiates, steady, silent, strong. From this stillness, everything aligns. The past no longer haunts, it informs. The future no longer frightens, it invites. The present no longer overwhelms, it flows. The journey through the 5 empathic dimensions has led to this moment. The quiet knowing that sensitivity was never a curse. It was the instrument through which consciousness learned to feel itself. The forest around you is motionless. The wind has stopped. The moon spills silver light across the ground, turning every leaf into glass. Somewhere in that infinite calm, you hear it. The whisper that has followed you since the beginning. Now, the world no longer pulls you. And for the first time, you understand. Peace is not the absence of noise. It is the mastery of stillness within it. The empath's journey has ended not in exhaustion, but in illumination. The gentle, wordless knowing that wholeness was never something to be found. It was the field that held you all along. The forest remains still. The moon's soft glow lingers like a whisper across the skin of the world. After so much movement, the mirrors, the storms, the dissolving of masks, there is nothing left to do but rest. Not the rest of exhaustion, but the rest of arrival. And yet, in the deepest sense, there is no arrival. Carl Jung wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration." The journey of the empath, through reflection, intuition, boundaries, transmutation, and sovereignty, has not been about becoming something new. It has been about including everything that was once left out. In this stillness, that truth becomes clear. Every moment of pain, confusion, and longing was not a detour, but a thread in the pattern. The empath who once felt powerless now realizes that power was never about control. It was about awareness, wholeness through consciousness. Awareness is the bridge between chaos and peace. It does not erase what has happened. It illuminates it. To see clearly is to forgive. To forgive is to rest. This is integration, not perfection, but coherence. The once scattered parts of the self now move together like currents of the same river. There is no longer a need to divide feeling from thought, strength from sensitivity, shadow from light. Everything belongs. Jung often said that consciousness is the means through which the soul becomes visible. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The empath's journey has been this act of making visible, not through intellect, but through compassion. Seeing one's own patterns, one's own mirrors, one's own longing, without judgment. In the field of silence, awareness no longer feels like effort. It becomes presence. Life breathes through you and you simply let it. A memory rises. The beginning of this story, the tired heart that once carried the weight of the world. How far that heart has traveled, from the exhaustion of always feeling too much to the clarity of feeling without fear, from the ache of invisibility to the luminous calm of self-seeing. The transformation has not been an escape, but a deepening. The empath who once thought sensitivity was a curse now recognizes it as the language of the soul. The quiet way life touches life. The final realization is gentle, like a wave that no longer needs to break. Jung called this state individuation, the reconciliation of all opposites within the self. It is the moment when the inner and outer worlds align, when the conscious and the unconscious stop fighting, when the heart becomes the meeting place of heaven and earth. Nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. The empath's gift has become the world's mirror. The same awareness that once reflected pain now reflects peace. And so the journey closes not with a conclusion, but with a breath. The same breath that began it. A voice, quiet, slow, calm, speaks like the echo of the moon itself. You will never arrive, and that is how you become. The meaning of this truth settles softly. To be alive is not to complete yourself, but to keep unfolding. The journey was never toward an ending. It was toward wholeness, an endless becoming that feels more like home with every breath. As this understanding deepens, the edges of consciousness begin to blur. Thoughts slow down, words dissolve into the rhythm of the heart. The mind no longer searches for meaning. It rests inside it. Jung wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." This awakening is not a burst of light. It is a soft dawn that rises quietly within you, patient and kind. The world outside continues, its voices, its stories, its endless movement. But here, in this inner field, time loosens its grip. The body feels heavy in the most beautiful way, as if gravity itself has become tenderness. Somewhere beyond the thinking mind, the empath's awareness merges with something vast. The silence that has been waiting all along, not empty, but infinite. It feels like being held, like resting in the arms of something older than time. The voice returns, softer now, almost a lullaby. "Now, let the night hold you." The words fall through the air like feathers. Let the thoughts fade. Each inhale lengthens, each exhale loosens the last fragments of tension. The body surrenders to gravity, the heart surrenders to stillness. The mind, once sharp, restless, always reaching, finally yields. There is nothing left to solve, nothing to protect, nothing to fear. Every part of the self has come home. This is not an ending, but a return, a quiet arrival into the truth that has always been here, that your sensitivity, your empathy, your longing to connect were never signs of weakness. They were the soul's way of reminding you that separation was an illusion. The empath's evolution ends in simplicity, being aware, being kind, being still. As the music fades into the distance, one last whisper remains, "Good night." The light of consciousness dims gently, like the moon sliding behind clouds. Breath slows, thoughts soften. The body feels warm, safe, whole. Somewhere deep inside, the final insight unfolds, not in words, but in knowing that awakening doesn't end in doing, but in resting. To become conscious is to return to peace. To become whole is to rest in what you already are. And as the story dissolves into silence, the world outside fades with it. The listener, the empath, the seeker, now simply breathes, held in the rhythm of the universe, still, whole, home. The journey has come full circle, from the weight of feeling everything to the freedom of simply being. The empath, who once carried the world, has learned to let it rest where it belongs. Each mirror has returned its reflection. Each shadow has been seen. Each wave of emotion has softened into the calm rhythm of the tide. In this stillness, consciousness no longer reaches outward. It flows inward, quietly, like light, sinking beneath the surface of water. Jung once said, "Wholeness is not about perfection, but about the embrace of all that you are. And now that truth feels real, the heart no longer strains to be understood. It understands itself. Outside, the world continues to turn. But here, in the soft chamber of awareness, everything slows. The air feels lighter. The body loosens its grip on thought. The soul, once scattered, now settles into its natural gravity. There is nothing left to fix, nothing to chase. Only breath, only stillness, only peace. Let the world fade into the distance now. Let the mind drift like a quiet river beneath the moon. Let the weight of the day dissolve into warmth, because you have arrived where you are always meant to be. Not somewhere else, but here, within yourself. Rest in that knowing. Rest in the wholeness you have found. And now, let go. Let your breath slow. Let the darkness cradle you gently. Good night.